So everybody has a barrier to employment, whether it is self-confidence or living rurally or lack of skills, those kind of things. But it's pretty neat when people come in with this is my skill set, this is what I know how to get. And then when you kind of open up that, and now they're doing something completely different that they never kind of considered before, that's kind of fun too.
If we do not have an open arm to economic immigration in our region, then we will struggle with longer wait times for healthcare, longer lineups for childcare. We will wait on projects to be built in our community with trades workers. We will wait to get our blood taken and have our floors tiled. We will wait to be served in just about every sector within our community. If we don't embrace economic immigration, we will struggle and our workforce participation rate will plummet, and we will have a very difficult time getting access to services.
We are really blessed in Vernon. I've worked in the nonprofit sector since the 90s. We are a very connected community. There's a ton of collaboration, lots of community champions. So there's lots of ways to connect, and there's lots of resources out there. So if you're an employer and you are hiring an immigrant, we do have Vernon and District Immigrant Services Society. They're a great place, in particular if the extended family are needing some supports. So that would be a starting place as an employer. It's also about the wider community. We need to take responsibility for how we're going to welcome immigrants.
Hi, I'm Sue.
And I'm Heath.
Together, we've created the Backyards to Boardrooms video podcast series.
Why? Because our planet has a problem. It is not very sustainable.
Luckily, we've come up with a solution to help. On Backyards to Boardrooms, we use the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to highlight the work being done in our communities.
We chat with local leaders about causes such as sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, and climate action. Backyards to Boardrooms,
where local action creates global impact. Hi, Heath.
Hello, Sue.
Episode 3. Welcome to episode 3 of Backyards to Boardrooms. This episode is about community resources.
And why are we talking about community resources? Because we are looking at SDGs number 8 and 10.
So decent work and economic growth and reduced inequalities, and about the resources available in our community and how we fill the gaps in the economy, like where we need skilled workers, where we need help, where we need people to fill in those gaps, and reduced inequalities, because so much of that effort as filling up our workforce comes from immigration. We want to make sure that those immigrants feel welcome in our community.
Yes, and making the transition from where they live previously into our community, and how they can be educated on how to maximize their experience here and create a new life for themselves.
For sure. So it's not just about immigrants, but it's also youth and entrepreneurs and seniors, anybody who is getting into the workforce to support themselves.
Yeah, this is going to be great. Yeah, I think you're going to really enjoy this episode.
So today we have Abby from Nexus BC with us. Welcome, Abby.
Well, thank you for having me.
Great to have you. Hi, Abby.
Hi.
It's like we haven't seen each other yet.
I know, right?
So, Abby, we're here to learn a bit about you and Nexus and its involvement in the community as a key resource. So, tell us a little bit about your experience with your work that you do and Nexus, and how Nexus got started in Vernon.
Sure. So, I started in Nexus, Nexus BC, we're called now, in 2003. And we were called the North Okanagan Employment Enhancement Society. And at that time, I started working with them with the self-employment program, which was an EI-funded program at that time. time jumps ahead. In about 2012, we were contacted from the Social Planning Council to see if we were interested in taking on volunteer services and senior services, which were two great programs that they had then. So I think at that time it gave us a really good thought to here's a evolution of our organization, and we did end up changing our mandate and changing sort of our goals and our name. So then we became Nexus BC Community Resource Center. At that time, that's when kind of Work BC came in as well. So there was a big change in employment services, in really everything. It was just a massive change in Vernon for supports. My role there now is I'm managing the employment programs, and we have some provincially funded programs similar to Work BC, just a little different.
I remember Noise because when I first got to Vernon, Noise was the self-employment program you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I was self-employed, and I also became a self-employment coach.
Awesome.
With Noise back then.
When it comes kind of our role in the community, we have a lot of different programs for individuals. We help seniors to stay in their homes longer with two programs. We have one called Better at Home. We have one called Age Well at Home, which offers like housekeeping and rides to appointments, maybe some light housework, things like that. It's excellent. We have a program called Connect, which is a resource and referral program. So if anybody, all ages, has any problems and they don't know where to get help, we're happy to be that first resource. And generally, if we can't help people, we're going to know who can.
I really love that about Vernon. There's so many places that say the same thing as you. Like if we don't have the solution for you, we can help you find it.
Yeah.
And Vernon is so collaborative that way, and it's really beautiful to see people here working together towards that common goal. I love it.
And I hope I love that, because I hope that's what we want to be, open and approachable, and that's definitely the goal.
Let's talk about you were talking about people having problems that you're trying to help solve. So I imagine those as sort of barriers to entry into the workforce. So what are some of those barriers that you see that people approach you with?
Yeah, honestly, self-confidence is I would say the number one barrier, even though I think traditionally we're going to talk about transportation and housing and food supports. I mean, those are the big three, especially in our community, like housing, huge. But we're also seeing lots of older workers that are on pensions or are just losing a long-term job that they've had, because that happens more than we know, and then not sure what to do next. And it does come down to, like, they've got the skills, they've got the experience, they have it, they just are lacking that confidence. Since the pandemic, I mean, we've been kind of issuing more counseling supports as well. Not that that's a huge piece, but it's definitely, for those ones that need it, hugely helpful.
I find it super interesting. Here we are on episode 3, and we're still talking about mental health, which we had in episode 1. But I'm so glad we put Canadian Mental Health Association in episode 1, because now it's kind of permeating everything
everywhere
that we're talking about.
We have, so we're starting it up here in the next week. We call it 50 plus, and it's part of our multi-barriered employment program. Multi-barriered, it's so hard to say it, but it's a program that is here to address people's barriers. So everybody has a barrier to employment, whether it is self-confidence or living rurally or lack of skills, those kind of things. But we do have a group specifically for older workers, so 50 plus. And the coolest thing about this, and I'm just talking about self-confidence, is that because it's group based, we get this group of 10 people in there. And I mean, they often are kind of experiencing the same things. So that collaboration and that
it's empowerment. It's empowering to be in that kind of a community,
it is,
right?
Because I think you feel alone.
Isolated. Exactly.
So now you get in this group and you start talking, and you're like, wait, I get that, and I get that, and I get that, and no, I don't know how to send an email either. And then they can work together, and instead of just being like in this facilitated class of learning, they are
Building
collaborating,
community, making
Totally.
connections.
totally, and friendships. And
Yeah.
they leave that group, like it's only 3 weeks long, but they leave there and they're like the check-ins, and it's pretty cool.
This
So,
is it, though. This
Yeah.
is how Nexus BC is helping towards sustainability in our community, is
Yeah.
building those bridges.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't just do employment, we have the other pieces too. So it all works together. We do have some information on housing. We do have some information on food. So, you need to have those pieces together with employment to sort of build that sustainability in the community. I
Yeah.
mean, and confidence and wages and, all that stuff.
Decent work and economic growth is what we're
Absolute-
after, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a web of situations that we have. You don't always just have one obstacle in our paths. We
No.
usually have a combination of things. So be able to having someone that can guide us or people through various resources, because there may even be things that you don't actually provide, but you know where to get it. Here we are.
Here we just-
Workforce empowerment.
Workforce empowerment. What a cool topic to be coming into after talking about the impact of poverty, after talking about social inclusion. Now we're moving into talking about our economy and how we empower our workforces and what impact immigration has on our workforce. So we have Leah with us today from Community Futures of the North Okanagan. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you.
Hi, Leah. She's the
Hello.
executive director for Community Futures of the North Okanagan.
And seems to know everybody. Like, we walked around the office here and just was like, oh, hey. Oh,
I don't know about that, but you've been in community a while.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got your finger on the pulse for sure. Yeah, it's for sure. So, we're excited to hear some of the things that Community Futures has got going on. You've always got interesting projects and initiatives happening. So tell us a bit about yourself and Community Futures, and then give us some insight on some of the projects you're working on.
Yeah, happy to. So Community Futures is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. So I hope you all
Wow.
come next week to our 40th anniversary
Yes,
party. You would have
planning
been
on it.
invited.
Yeah.
And so we're celebrating 40 years of providing services and being, part of the economic development community. We work within 3 of the 4 pillars of community economic development. So we work extensively in workforce development. So Work BC office here. We have employment programming that supports both people that are unemployed or precariously employed, and also that supports employers. Employers are part of that employment relationship. So we have programming that supports employers extensively. We also work in the second pillar of economic development, which is business retention and expansion. So various programs and services associated with business retention. How do they stay healthy? How do we help them thrive and grow in our community? And expansion. So we have export navigator programs, and we have programs that help people sort of accelerate their business. And then we work in the space of entrepreneur support. So we do lots of programming and initiatives around entrepreneur support that help people start businesses, that help them test the water, that help them understand viability and how to scale. And then we have a competition around that called the Enterprise Challenge that is going to enter its 10th year of that competition next year. So we're super excited about that.
Very cool
And
competition. Yeah.
it is. And he,
Yeah.
of course, has been a judge in that competition, and Sprung's been a big supporter for.
I'm just
From the
waiting
beginning.
for the signups to release because I'm an entrepreneur myself starting a new business. So
Oh, you're gonna
Yeah.
love that
I'm waiting.
program.
Yes.
So while
I'm
it's
very
a
excited for
pitch
it.
program, it
Yeah.
really is a program that's centered around helping businesses get started well. So we equip them with all sorts of training and support and mentorship and encouragement all the way along, and then it accumulates into this amazing pitch evening that is very well attended.
Did you hear that, Sue? You get to a microphone and a stage and an audience.
Yes, yeah. So within those 3 pillars of economic development, we also do economic development projects, and those projects are really dictated based on what the community needs. The nice thing about Community Futures is that we can be nimble and we can be responsive. And if we hear that, we really need this in our community and this is lacking and we need to support that, we can mobilize quite quickly and be nimble and bring the right partners together and collaborate with the right people in order to move something forward that our community needs.
Yes, and you have some very cool initiatives. Do you have any specific programs that deal with immigration or?
Yes. Yeah. And so we're just in the process of wrapping the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot Program. So this has been a pilot for the last 5 years in our region. There's 2 communities in the province that run this program. So us and a community in the West Kootenays. And it was a pilot program from the federal government that said, you know, when newcomers come to our communities, they typically go to large centers. So that's not a big surprise. Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, those kinds of places is where people go. They find community there. They've really struggled over the years with figuring out ways to get newcomers to settle in rural communities. So they initiated this pilot that said, hey, let's see what happens when we put the decision-making power in the hands of communities. And by decision-making power, that means we get to decide the criteria that people come under. We get to determine what sectors and industries in our region are needing skilled workers. We get to decide the wage threshold. We get to decide the criteria, things that we know will make it easier and have people be more successful to stay in our community.
Sorry, so who decides? The community? So
The
it's
community.
like a polling type
No,
process? or?
so we were given we signed an MOU with IRCC, so Immigration, Refugee, Citizens Canada, and so Community Futures was their proponent. And what we did was we pulled together a group of people, committee of people that represented different sectors, that represented different collaborators, nonprofits in the community. And we formed a committee, and that committee was the decision-making body, which meant that whenever someone applied, or employer applied, or a candidate applied, that committee vetted that application and made the recommendation for approval.
Oh, really?
And then
Wow.
that was sent to IRCC
Cool.
and was generally approved. So the community was making decisions about who comes, stays, and potentially settles here. So over the last 5 years, our community has recommended over 1,000 individuals
Wow.
who have come to the community through this pathway that are attached to an employer. And these are, for the most part, jobs in healthcare, trades, childcare, transportation, IT, professional services. And so these employers hire these individuals. We recommend them for permanent residency, which is the step below Canadian citizenship.
Wow.
And so when individuals get approved, also their immediate family gets approved. So not only are we helping employers fill critical shortages within the workforce in those critical sectors, but there's this secondary workforce that's coming along with those individuals. So over 2,000 people have come through this program in the last 5 years. Over 500 individual employers have been supported in our region to be able to hire and retain these skilled workers. And so, what does this mean for our economy? What does this mean for our workforce? In a community that has demographic imbalances in the way that we do, it means that we now have people who can help build our houses and take care of our families and take care of our children and fill these critical workforce shortages in ways that we hadn't been able to do before.
Wow.
You used a term there that I think immigration kind of fills for us, and what you just said is that demographic imbalance. And that's not a perspective that I ever really thought of. Super interesting that, we just don't have enough people here to do all the things that need to be done.
Today with us is the Social Planning Council from the North Okanagan, and speaking on that organization's behalf is Annette Sharkey.
Welcome,
Annette.
Thank you. Glad
Thanks
to be
for
here.
being here. Awesome.
This is a council that I admittedly knew nothing about, but I am super excited to learn more. Even just in our pre-interview conversation, I'm already inspired and excited to hear what you have to share with us today. So can you start, Annette, with giving us a little self-introduction and who you are and what you do with the Social Planning Council?
So I'm with the Social Planning Council, and we're a community development organization. been around since 1969 in the community. I've been with the organization since 2006, so I've been around a while. For most of that time, I've been the only employee. So when we say council, it sounds huge, but really the council are the partnerships and the different organizations that I work with. Although recently we now have another employee with the Local Immigration Partnership Council. So there's two of us now doing the work. But as I said, really with our organization, it's those wider partnerships, that community development focus.
That must be helpful for you to have an extra brain on the job. Hey,
Yeah, it's been amazing. Naz has been an incredible asset, and the work she's doing. I'm hoping to talk about some of that work today. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
all right.
in this episode, we're going to be diving into community resources and immigration, employment, what economic growth looks like in this community. That's a whole lot of bigger range topics, but let's start with the problem that we've identified. So what are we trying to solve in the community?
Well, I know right now that really we have a workforce issue in terms of there's sectors that don't have enough workers. We're trying to attract people to our community in many different sectors, such as healthcare, education, also around tourism, service industry. So we know we don't have enough workers in the community. So how do we attract people? And with the local immigration partnership, we're really focusing on how do we attract immigrants to Vernon, but then also how do we welcome them and how do we make sure they're having a good experience, they're thriving, and that they have a sense of belonging here in Vernon. So that really is the local immigration partnership in a nutshell.
And what an amazing start coming out of our previous episode, which was all about social inclusion. How do we make sure people feel included?
Yeah, there's that's a big question. So I think maybe we can unpack that a little bit. So I think understanding with immigration that we are asking people to come to Canada from like around the world. And that's a huge move. If you think about yourself, and if you were to move somewhere entirely new, in some cases, a new language, a new culture, what are the things that you would need when you arrive? And so really we talk about that community hug. I think you've talked about that with Community Futures a little bit. And how do we really set people up for success in Vernon? With immigration, some of the things we want to make sure with our immigration policy is that when we're attracting people, say, for example, with the healthcare sector, how are we integrating them when they arrive? Are their credentials easily recognized? Are we able to have them work in that sector almost as soon as they arrive? So again, think about yourself. If you were placed suddenly somewhere around the world, what would you need to feel included? And it's not just about feeling safe and welcomed in the workspace. It's also how are their families, how are their spouses, their partners, their children, how are they connecting in community as well? So that's all part of the community hub.
You bring in a good point too, because when you think about attracting people with skill sets to another community or to Canada anywhere, they tend to come with families, and so you have not only, you don't have just have one person coming, you could have 2, 3, 4, 5 or more people coming. So that has an impact in itself, not only for them but for our community too, right?
And the other thing we've been talking about is how all of those family members are also going to need work, right? And so how do we support them in this community to ensure that everybody is contributing? There are positive and negative impacts when we talk about immigration specifically. Can you talk about the immigrants coming here and we're removing their skill set from their home country, from their culture, so that we can fill the void in ours?
Yeah, this again, it's a really big situation to unpack. So just around the globe, in terms of, let's say, healthcare, if we're attracting doctors and nurses from other countries that need their doctors and nurses, that puts us into an ethical dilemma. So, we need to, again, be really careful when we're inviting people from around the world. If we are taking resources away and then attracting them into our communities, but not setting them up for success here, does that really seem fair? And so I think, it's always about balancing, making sure that we're understanding what our immigration policies, how they're impacting people here in our community, but also impacting other countries around the world. And so, again, people have choices when they make a decision to immigrate and take their skills and their talent. There's other countries also wanting to benefit from immigration. So there really is the onus on us, as if we are inviting people from around the world, how are we welcoming them? Are we viewing them as people, not as commodities? Are we really embracing the challenge of moving into a new community, learning a new culture, sometimes learning a new language? And are we embracing people and including them and having them feel like they belong here?
Super interesting conversations so far. We have one more segment that is community action. How can the community participate in the actions, the problem solving, the solutions that we're talking about here in this episode, Community Resources?
Whether you're an employer, individual, or a family, there's something you can do to help.
So can we talk about how the community can be part of what Nexus BC is doing? How can we contribute to the solution of decent work, economic growth?
I think when it comes to like sustainability in our community and supporting the job seekers and just building growth, I think the biggest thing we get talking about is don't be scared to hire older workers that maybe are only going to be there for a year or two. They come with huge experience and knowledge and I talk about lack of confidence, but sometimes they have massive confidence and ideas. I think that's the biggest thing is hire varied people. Like we all have our idea of what the ideal candidate is, but I wouldn't be scared to hire a youth that's maybe lacking some skills and experience and building on that. I think sometimes employers think that they have this ideal candidate and it's just going to make their life easier. I don't know. Building someone up and growing someone from the base into your ideal candidate is pretty darn rewarding. And that comes with loyalty as well, right? Looking at older workers, looking at young workers.
Yeah.
Putting them together because they also will mentor each other, really, right?
That generational combination between the
youth
and
with
the
their
seniors.
technology, youth with technology, seniors with their experience. It works, right?
Yeah.
So
it's scary to step outside of your comfort zone sometimes, though, right? If you have this preconceived notion of what it is you want and what you're looking for, it's hard to stray from that sometimes.
It is. And I think, even our organization, when we're looking to hire, so I can say all these great things, but when we're looking to hire, we ask around, hey, do you know anybody? Do you know anybody? Do you know anybody? Because we all look to hire from our circle first, right?
Yeah.
It is about putting yourself out there too, right? Like, where do you want to work and who do you want to work for? Go convince them, from kind of coaching the job seekers in that way too. But as an employer, when those people come in that just randomly or keenly want to work for you, take it seriously, because that was a big step outside of their comfort zone to just walk in the door.
So they're looking for the gap, right? Trying to what gap can I fill? I want to do that.
Yeah. And it's pretty complimentary that somebody wants to work in your organization too.
Absolutely.
So there's usually a reason why they've come in. It's either word of mouth or personal experience that gets them there. It's pretty cool. And we have a great team. Like, we have a great team, and they're all so different, and they all have different strengths, and it just works together. And in the end, it's just a little,
It's magic.
yeah, it's magic.
That's great. Thank you so much. It's great to have you here. It was very valuable. Really meshes so nicely with this episode. So thanks,
Well,
Abby.
Thank you for having me. And like I said, if anybody's looking for help with anything, it's really anything, come see us at Nexus BC.
I mean, this program, bringing all these people in, there must be challenges that come along with that, not just for them, but for our community. Like, can we have the infrastructure to support them, using housing as an example, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest question I get. Hands
Yeah, I
down.
bet.
Where are
Yeah.
these people living?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest question. It's interesting. So of the 1,000 people, so I'm just going to backtrack on that question just for a second. I'm not going to
Sure.
dodge it. I'm just going to backtrack just to
Okay.
explain. So of the 1,032 people that we have recommended, 87% of them have stayed. It's a mind-blowing stat.
Wow.
Because in a rural community, once you get permanent residency, you can go wherever you want. You don't have to stay in that rural community. So 87% of them have stayed in our community. And
That's
87% of them
great.
have found housing. We have because we work pretty closely with these newcomers when they come
Right.
to help ensure their success. We connect them with settlement services and all kinds of, we give them a big community hug. We've had one individual
That's
that
nice.
has
I
I
like
love that
a
community
big
hug.
community
yeah,
hug.
big community hug. Yeah, when these folks come, because we want to keep them here. They have skills we need, and so we had one individual leave that couldn't find housing. It hasn't been the barrier. I expected it to be.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's
Oh
what I
my
was
gosh,
thinking,
it's going to be. But when we think about North American housing, our 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 1,500 square feet that we are accustomed to. Not all
Mhm.
cultures need that kind of space. Like
Right.
density, some people are very comfortable with density. And so we saw folks welcome others into their home. The other thing we did is we set up a partnership with HappyPad. So HappyPad is a room sharing platform. So Heath, if you have an extra bedroom in your house and you decide, I wouldn't mind renting that out, you can go onto HappyPad. You can rent out that bedroom. That individual can stay for 3 months, 6 months, whatever you decide. They pay you rent. So HappyPad and us, we formed a partnership called the North Okanagan Homestay Program. And so we had lots of people who had space in their homes open it up to a newcomer who was employed, attached to an employer, that it was a landing place until they could find their
Mhm.
own space.
Not necessarily permanent, but something to get them in,
Yeah.
get them settled, and then
Yeah.
help them find a place that's more permanent.
Yes.
What an interesting solution to housing crisis, right?
Yeah.
Like, that really brings that barrier down for people coming into our community
Mhm.
who, yes, I mean, we need people to help support the economic side, but where are they going to
Yeah.
live?
And a great way for people to find a way to help to contribute as well, because that's part of what we're talking about too, is ways
Right.
that people can actually, you got a spare room and you're willing to let someone stay with you for a temporary
Mhm.
term. You're going to help someone move into this community and become part of our community. What a great way for someone to be able to do that who's got an extra room
Yes. Yeah.
or suite or
It was
something like
effective. Yeah. It
that.
worked
Yeah,
well.
that's incredible.
Yes.
So the next question then is, I mean, it leads nicely into community support. What can the community do to help or contribute to the initiatives that Community Futures has going?
Oh my gosh, the community does so much already. So
Yes.
much. Yeah, it's like, so the partnerships that we have in the community, just for the ARNET program alone, we had people come out of the woodwork that were willing to be mentors. So essentially, hey, I'll show you around. I'll meet you for coffee. I'll invite you over for dinner. I'll, get to know you and your family. And we saw some amazing connections happen through that,
That's
as well as
cool.
Vernon
That's great to
District
hear.
Immigrant Services Society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do incredible work in our community. The school district came on board as a partner because a lot of these folks came with children. We've in general, we have so much community support for our programming, things like Enterprise Challenge, where we need volunteer mentors, we need volunteer judges, and we need businesses to come up with prizes that are usually service-based. And then, we have youth employment programs where employers step up to say, yeah, okay, I'll take that youth on. I'll give them a chance. I'll take them into my business and I'll support them. We have employers that do that with people with disabilities that are seeking employment, and incredibly patient, kind, and generous folks in our community.
Mm-hmm. You can say that again.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
I think that's a really nice spot to talk about local action creating global impact. So, what are we doing locally? How can the community be part of the community hug, right?
Yeah.
Supporting those community resources so that we can all rise together.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different things that we can do. This is the exciting part for me because there is a lot of community action right now and ways to get involved. I think when we're inviting people in from around the world, a starting point for us is around First Nation culture and First Peoples. And so we are moving through a truth and reconciliation process, and that's really about learning about ourselves as a nation and the truth about our history and the impact of colonization and that journey that we're on right now. If you're an employer, is one of the first things you can do is take a look at your policies. And, we do have to follow Employment Standards Act, but I'll give you an example of something Social Planning Council has done. We looked at statutory holidays. And a lot of those statutory holidays were developed, around, say, maybe Christian holidays, or they were created with more colonial holidays in mind. And if you have someone moving in from another culture who has a different religion, maybe offering some flexibility around those stats. So potentially maybe you don't want to work on the September long weekend, but you want to have that day off for a holiday or a celebration, or if that's part of your culture and that's important to you. So it doesn't cost Social Planning Council anything to provide that flexibility or those options, but hopefully that's a signal and a message to that employee that we're honoring people's cultures, and that statutory holidays may not align exactly, and we're going to provide that flexibility.
That's a simple one to implement. I mean, but it sends such a really positive message to not only other employers, but to the people that you're employing, to provide that flexibility. I think that's a really great way to kick that door open for any employer, really. Very simple.
It's about options and choices, and talking to your employees as well. It could be that they don't want any changes. There's no need to make any
Right.
changes,
Right.
but just providing that flexibility. And I think too, and it's an uncomfortable topic, but it's one we as a community really need to talk about, and that is racism. So we're a predominantly white community, and we're inviting people from around the world. And so what does that feel like if you come to Vernon and you're a person of color? What does that feel like? And there's a lot of great resources out there. The library has a ton of resources, even children's books about how to talk about racism. I think we're just starting to really open this up and talk about this openly, and we need to continue to have that conversation. We need to make sure that people coming to our community, aren't experiencing racist incidents such as being told to go back to where you came from. I've heard that story that has happened in our community. And it's not about blame. It's not about you as an individual have done something wrong. It's more about looking at the system that's been created.
Yeah, that's critical, I think. I mean, you're right. Racism is a difficult subject for a lot of people. But generationally, I think we're learning a lot, particularly now in the last, since COVID, there's been so much growth in that area.
It's okay to learn. It's okay to unpack. It's okay to have these conversations. We can just take our time and do the learning that we need to do, and really listen deeply. What does it feel like in our community if we're not white, if we are a person of color? And what can we do to change that dynamic for people, to make sure people do feel safe?
I can just imagine moving to a completely new country with limitations on the language skills and knowledge of the cultures, like feeling literally like a fish out of water, is would be very uncomfortable. So I think people putting ourselves in those, thinking about what that would feel like, would help us be a little more sympathetic and considerate of where they're at. Amazing.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you so much, Annette. This
Thank
has
you.
been an excellent sort of wrap up of this episode, and I look forward to seeing the whole thing come together. So really, thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Heath, I have to say, I mean, this episode took a completely different direction. I mean,
I know, right?
and it just like you can plan, you can put all the plans in place, but
Mhm.
until you actually start talking to people and conducting interviews and learning all the little bits and pieces that this community collaborates on.
Really, it was very fascinating to hear what resources we actually have in this community. Because I've been here 19 years, but I don't know the depth to what some of these people are doing.
Populations need support, right?
Mhm.
We've got youth, we've got seniors, we've got immigrants, we have entrepreneurs. Those are the four specifically that are coming to the top of my brain.
Right.
We originally started this episode talking about workforce empowerment
Right.
and wanting to talk about immigration and how that has a ripple effect and impact within our community. But it turned into so much more than that.
So much more. I mean, just the fact what Annette was talking about with, like, when you're bringing newcomers to our community, teaching them about truth and reconciliation, and maybe bringing them up to speed with where our country was and where it's been and where it's going, and how do they fit into that.
Yeah.
And then also considering, well, if you're going to bring people here, you're going to solve a problem.
Right.
But we also have to understand that where we take from, that creates lack
Elsewhere in the world,
elsewhere
right?
in the world.
So we're filling skills gaps here in Vernon because we
Mhm.
need to, right?
Mhm.
We have an aging demographic here in Vernon. We've
Mhm.
talked about that. We've talked about seniors going back to work,
Mhm.
filling some of those gaps as
because
well.
they can't afford to live.
Right. But we're filling those gaps, but then creating them elsewhere in the world.
I know.
Super interesting.
Every decision we make affects something else, and it just, like you said, it's just a ripple effect.
So we better make sure we're taking good care of our community, of our
Mhm.
people, of the people we're welcoming into our community. And I think another interesting topic, which will give us a nice segue to the next episode about waste management. This is the next
Mhm.
episode, is something that I came across in SDG 8, is talking about the inverse effect of economic growth and environmental impact.
Right.
So as we're growing economically, we also need to make sure that we're considering our environment as well. And so
Right.
I think that's a super interesting segue and a really nice introduction to our...
And also educating newcomers on our environmental standards
Mhm.
and how we impact our environment. And we want to keep our environment as clean and the ripple effect to the larger global climate.
My co-host, Heath, thank you for coming along the ride for that very
That was
interesting episode.
really cool.
Like really
Thanks.
eye-opening. I really loved it. So
Yeah,
thank you.
I liked it too. It was really great. Can't wait to see it all come together. So have a nice weekend.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Backyards to Boardrooms.
Don't forget to subscribe, and all the links to the cool things you learned are down in the notes below.
Bye!
Bye.